is going to be a much less formal presentation. It'll be a little bit looser and sort of a show and tell. And I want you always, as you're participating in all of these activities, to try in your mind to hang together all that we are exploring, because the whole theme is interconnection, connectivity, and responsibility. And everything that we have explored is, in a way, talking about our connectivity. Whether it was our history last night, you know, the beautiful pictures of nature, and our connections with Jeffrey Hodgson. All of these things are a part of this cosmic web of which we live and breathe and move in ourselves. So always keep that in mind as we go through the week. I think it's very interesting to see how all of these things interact with each other in very complex ways. And as I said, this is more of a sort of show and tell. Loving this book. And this book is not all hard scientific facts, although most of it is. It's got a poem in it at the beginning that I think is it sets such a good tone for our thinking. Come, sail with me on a quiet pond. The shores are shrouded, the surface smooth. We're vessels on the pond, and we are one with the pond. A fine wake spreads out behind us, traveling through the misty waters. Its subtle waves register our passage. Your wake and mine coalesce. They form a pattern that mirrors your movement as well as mine. As other vessels, who are also us, sail the pond, that is us as well. Their waves interact with both of ours. The pond's surface comes alive with wave upon wave, ripple upon ripple. They are the memory of our movement, the traces of our being. The waters whisper from you to me, and from me to you, and from both of us to all the others who sail the pond. Our separateness is an illusion. We are interconnected parts of the whole. We are a pond with movement and memory. Our reality is larger than you and me, and all the vessels that sail the waters, and all the waters on which they sail. So that's who we are, just ripples in this pond, interconnecting with each other, influencing each other, and a part of each other. I think that's a beautiful poem. So, love this book. What I wanted to do this morning, and I know that all of you, most of you got copies of the quotes that I gave out first evening. Actually, they were so popular, there were none left. So, but I have another smaller sheet that I'm going to use for us to use in discussion with each other so that we anchor these ideas into our own personal thoughts. But what I'm going to do is divide the room into 3 parts. And so I've got 3 parts in my little quotes here from scientists particularly. And the first page is on the characteristics of Akasha, to think about what some of the scientists have said and talk about it among yourselves. The second page is divided into 2 parts in which we're talking about the fact that Akasha is registering, recording a memory bank, so to speak. And so another part of the room will talk about the memory bank with each other. And the third part is short, but it's really important. It's about how responsive the universe is to us, to what we do. I just want to get some feedback from you. From the back of the room, what are some of the things that you noticed about our universe that were impactful? What was impactful to you? What ideas? Yes. All is one. Oops. One has element. Okay? Yes. Oh, I'd love for you to write it up. You can see that I need help. Okay, what else? Yes.
Everything's in relationship.
Just put relationship. All is in relation.
The universe or life is not a result of chance. There is order in the universe.
Not chance, order. It's confirmed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, that there is no sense of permanent self.
No permanence of self.
Yeah.
Okay. And no permanence.
Like it was saying here, there's no framework within which we find consciousness in the plural, in terms of plurality of individuals. And that relates to the kind of mystic view from the East, that there's no sense of self. It's just an illusion. We think we're something, but we're nothing.
Well, that really echoes this idea of the waves and the interaction of the waves. I told somebody, and it is true, I mean, it's unfortunate, I've never really related to this idea of being a bubble in the ocean. You know, it's hard to connect to that. The older I get, I realize I'm just a little bit of foam floating around. So it is a brief span, and when you're young it seems like it's that you have eternity, but then as you get older you realize it's a brief span that we have. Oh, memory, registering, that the universe knows what's going on is registering what, it's our memory bank, that all is recorded. What did you get in the quotes about that?
The universe is constantly evolving, so it's going through evolving stages.
Okay, just put evolving. Yes.
The idea of karma keeps all of the old stuff, and we want to go beyond the old stuff, and I think there is a way to do that.
Karma is not simple. You know, when you first hear about it, you think, oh, this is simple. I'll slap somebody and they're going to slap me back. Either in this lifetime, which is cash karma, or in another lifetime, which is inherited karma. But it's very complex and it's very fluid, because this universe, this consciousness is fluid, and it responds in new ways, ever new ways, which is one of the things that's quite amazing when you think it's not a static universe. So what shall we say with that?
It's wrong.
Karma is wrong, or karma is fluid. Karma is wrong. Static karma is wrong. Nothing is static. If the universe is conscious, it's ever moving and unfolding. Yes?
We had, there was a paragraph about far-seeing or remote seeing.
Okay.
Well, most people would recognise Akasha as something being, you know, actually reality, but if the governments are tapping into it and trying to get secrets off each other and utilise it, then it will start rapidly coming into practical.
Yes, it's true. He's saying that governments use the Akasha or this recording to spy on each other, and that it's a very practical thing in some ways. And we had a program at Alcott on, I think his name is Tarsha, and it was in a Quest magazine, that he had a whole project, the Far-Seeing Project, and that they had spies in World War II even who were psychically looking at where the weaponry was in Russia. And there are also instances of crimes being solved because somebody can either get the vibes from a piece of cloth or from a stone or from a wall, or just connect into that psychic realm. So it's quite amazing, and you think it's woo-woo stuff, but when we start seeing that it's anchored in the scientific Akasha field, it's not so woo-woo. It's just a way the universe works, that we're all connected with this consciousness. We should put memory in here. Yeah, that's what you're saying, that it's somehow there's a memory bank. Anybody want to add anything else to the characteristics of what and this is really ends up being the A field. Yes.
The same memories are seen in a new and conscious manner.
A new and conscious manner, so it is renewing, yes, ever renewing. That there's a newness, there's the consciousness is not static, but it is ever responding and renewing itself, and we're a part of that, and we're in the flow of that.
It can also keep us where we are and stop us running.
Only if we stop ourselves. If we think we know, we are blocking everything. And so, yes, we have that ability. That's good, that's good. Consciousness. Yes, Laurie.
Yeah, 2 or 3 people in our group began to explore the idea that there's a difference between observing non-physically, something that is now, and actually began to read or experience something in the past.
Yes, they're 2 aspects, maybe 2 connections with a level. One, the current level, if one would be clairvoyant, one would be relating to the current flow, so it would be at a level that's more connected, I guess, to the physical world. Whereas the vast reaches of history, I think, would be at more subtle levels, possibly. Yeah. Okay, so let's think of implications. If this is the web we're living in, this conscious cosmic web of which we're a part, what are the implications for our living now? What does it mean to us now? And that's where this group over here, yeah. Right. What would you say?
We were talking about connectivity between people, a little bit of psychic experience, like a mother knowing when her son's girlfriend was pregnant before it happened. People going back into the past and being able to see things about other people.
Knowing and seeing. Mm-hmm. One of the ones, do you have any responses? What are the implications if this is what we live in? Yes.
We have to be very aware of what we're doing.
Need to be aware. I think this is really critical if you think about it. If you're building in your negative thoughts and you're creating that within yourself, you're also wounding the planet and wounding other people. And they're not just hidden thoughts, like I can do something in a closet and nobody's going to know about it. I am doing it to the universe and doing it to myself. It's like a diet, really. You think about it. Nobody will know I had this piece of chocolate. But the body knows, and the body builds in the fat anyway. So we can't get away with it, we can't do it in secret and it not show up. And that's the same thing with our thoughts and our actions, the way we respond responsively to the universe, everything. It's this dynamic whole. And that's what makes, when we really realize, that's what makes Theosophy so powerful. Because we realize we're in this pulsating, living being, and that we're a part of it, and we're a part of each other. I mean, that to me is just one of the most powerful understandings that we can have. The rest of it, if we understand it, fine. If we don't, fine. But that is the basis. Yes.
I wonder, what about our free will then?
It's a fluid. It's like karma. It's fluid. We're affecting it, and it's affecting us, and it's not static. So, it's a fluid thing. Yes.
It also means we can heal.
Heal, yes, we can put that, can heal. And as Dora Kuntz, who was one of my teachers, and I really revere her. She's a psychic in the United States that has passed. But she always said, you can change. It's not easy because you've got all these patterns of your consciousness that you have locked in through habit. But with effort, you can change, and you can, when you can change those patterns through meditation, through self-talk, through whatever practices you can do, you change your patterns, and you're changing your world, and you're changing your consciousness, and you're changing your impact on consciousness. So it's a very fluid thing. Yeah.
Also means the physical world as we experience is the illusion, and the A field is the reality.
Absolutely, that's excellent. That the physical world that seems so solid, so real, is an illusion, and the A field, this field of consciousness, is the reality. When we realize that, it puts a lot of things into a different perspective. So maybe put.
The other one was being in a clean environment.
And all particularly psychically sensitive people really want a clean environment, because the disorder and the dirt is counteractive to clearer thinking and clearer reaction. Yes.
The one about the physical realm not being real, perhaps it's best to say it's not permanent, because someone who's having their foot sawn off without anaesthesia, can you tell them it's not real?
That's an illusion. Okay. Not permanent. Change it to not permanent. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What part of the brain do these energies most affect?
Most affect what part of the brain? Theoretically, of course, our pineal gland is what connects us to that inner light, but I would say not really the brain, but the mind or spirit or consciousness. Our consciousness, which focuses through our brain, would be where this is impactful, and yet, the impact of brain is major. I wanted to share with you a video. I have so much information. You can tell that I've just been really interested in this field. But I have a video that is an interesting aspect, because it was made by creationists who want to prove that God created the earth and that it couldn't have been an evolutionary process. But they are moving towards the idea that there is an intelligent design, which gets a little closer to our idea in the theosophical world. And because scientists are discovering there are areas in which Darwin's material evolution just do not hold water. And even HPB said Darwin begins his evolution of species at the lowest point and traces upward. His only mistake may be that he applies a system at the wrong end. And remember, we always say things unfold from within outward. Could he remove his quest from the visible universe into the invisible, he might find himself on the right track. And so this is a video that I think you will enjoy. It's just 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up real quickly.
To see why, you must understand a feature of molecular machines known as irreducible complexity.
Irreducible complexity was coined by Mike Behe in describing these molecular machines. Basically what it says is that you have multi-component parts to any given organelle or system in a cell, all of which are necessary for function. That is, if you remove one part, you lose function of that system.
The idea of irreducible complexity can be illustrated by a familiar, non-biological machine, a mousetrap. The trap is composed of 5 basic pieces: a catch to hold the bait, a strong spring, a thin bent rod called the hammer, a holding bar to secure the hammer in place, and a platform upon which the entire system is mounted. If any one of these parts is missing or defective, the mechanism will not work. All components of this irreducibly complex system must be present simultaneously for the machine to perform its function. Catching mice.
We don't advocate that.
Irreducible complexity also applies to biological machines, including the bacterial flagellar motor.
All told, there are about 40 different protein parts which are necessary for this machine to work. And if any of those parts are missing, then either you get a flagellum that doesn't work because it's missing the hook or it's missing the drive shaft or whatever, or it doesn't even get built within the cell.
In evolutionary terms, you have to be able to explain how you can build this system gradually when there is no function until you have all those parts in place.
The irreducible complexity of molecular machines poses a severe challenge to the power of natural selection. According to Darwin's theory, even very complex biological structures like an eye, an ear, or a heart can be built gradually over time in small incremental steps. Yet, as Darwin made clear, natural selection can only succeed if these random genetic changes provide some advantage to the evolving organism in its struggle for survival.
As I have attempted to show, it is not necessary to suppose that the modifications are all simultaneous if they were extremely slight and gradual. Natural selection is scrutinizing the slightest variations, rejecting those that are bad, preserving and adding up all that are good.
But could Darwin's small, favorable variations have produced a bacterial flagellum? Some scientists doubt the possibility.
How could something new, like a bacterial flagellar motor and all the components that go with it, how could it develop out of a population of bacteria that don't have that system? When each change, according to Darwin's theory, has to provide some kind of advantage.
Imagine such a scenario early in the Earth's history. An evolving bacterial bacterium somehow develops a tail and perhaps even the pieces necessary to attach it to the cell wall. Yet without a complete motor assembly, this innovation would provide no advantage to the cell. Instead, the tail would lie immobile and useless, invisible to natural selection, which by definition can only favor changes that aid survival.
The logic of natural selection is very demanding. Unless the flagellum mechanism is completely assembled and actually works, natural selection simply cannot preserve it. It cannot be passed on to the next generation.
The important thing to realize about natural selection is it selects only for a functional advantage. In most cases, natural selection actually eliminates things that have no function or that have a function that harms the organism. So if you had a bacterium with a tail that didn't function as a flagellum, chances are natural selection would eliminate it. The only way you can select for a flagellum is if you have a flagellum that works, and that means you have to have all the pieces of the motor in place to begin with. So natural selection can't get you the bacterial flagellum. It can only work after the flagellum is there and operating.
In 1996, Michael Behe published a book titled Darwin's Black Box. In it, he argued that natural selection, Darwin's designer substitute, could not explain the origin of the bacterial flagellum or any other irreducibly complex biological system. Instead, Behe concluded that the integrated complexity of these systems pointed to intelligent design. Darwin's black box created immediate controversy. Over 75 publications, including some of the world's leading newspapers and scientific journals, reviewed the book. Some scientists praised Behe's work, while others dismissed it as unscientific and religiously motivated. Behe's critics also insisted that he had underestimated the power of natural selection. They argued that the flagellar motor could have been constructed from parts used to build simpler molecular machines, like this needle-nose cellular pump. If the components of the pump already existed, they could have been preserved by natural selection even before the bacterial motor arose. This theory is called co-option.
It's essentially saying that evolution or natural selection at some point was able to borrow components of one molecular machine and build a new machine with some of these components.
Scott Minnick has studied the flagellar motor for nearly 20 years. His research has led him to challenge the co-option argument.
With a bacterial flagellum, you're talking about a machine that's got 40 structural parts. Yes, we find 10 of them are involved in another molecular machine, but the other 30 are unique. So where are you going to borrow them from? Eventually, you're going to have to account for the function of every single part as originally having some other purpose. So you can only follow that argument so far until you run into the problem of you're borrowing parts from nothing. But even if you concede that you have all the parts necessary to build one of these machines, that's only part of the problem. Maybe even more complex, I think more complex, is the assembly instructions. That is never addressed by opponents of the irreducible complexity argument.
Studies of the bacterial motor have indeed revealed an even deeper level of complexity. For its construction not only requires specific parts, but also a precise sequence of assembly.
You've got to make things at the right time. You've got to make the right number of components. You've got to assemble them in a sequential manner. You've got to be able to tell if you've assembled it properly so that you don't waste energy building a structure that's not going to be functional.
Building a molecular machine has been compared to the construction of a house, where workers follow a detailed blueprint and plan for assembly. The foundation of a house is poured before the walls are erected. Plumbing and electrical fixtures are installed prior to enclosing the walls of the structure. Windows must be hung before siding is applied, and shingles are attached only after plywood sheets are nailed to the rafters. So it is with the construction of a flagellar motor.
You build this structure from the inside out. You're counting the number of components in a ring structure of a stator, and once that's assembled, there's feedback that says, okay, no more of that component now. A rod is added, a ring is added, another rod is added, a U-joint's added. Once the U-joint's at a certain size and a certain degree of bend, about a quarter turn, that's shut off, and then you start adding components for the propeller. These are all made in a precise sequence, just like you would build a building.
To build a motor correctly requires a complex system of machines that coordinate the timing of the assembly instructions. But how could natural selection construct such a system?
The co-option argument doesn't explain this. You see, in order to construct that flagellar mechanism, or tens of thousands of other such mechanisms in the cell, you require other machines to regulate the assembly of these structures. And those machines themselves require machines for their assembly.
If even one of these pieces is missing or put in the wrong place, your motor isn't going to work. So this apparatus to assemble the flagellar motor is itself irreducibly complex. In fact, what we have here is irreducible complexity all the way down.
We know a lot about the bacterial flagellum. We still have a lot to learn, but we know a lot about it. And there's no explanation for how this complex molecular machine was ever produced by a
that's good.
mechanism.
Okay, so I think that gives you another insight into how our very subtle consciousness field impacts everything in ways we don't understand. So, to be continued next time. Thank you for your attention, and we will end for the time being. Oh, let me read one quote before I do, because I think this is a good, from the Secret Doctrine. Humanity is the child of cyclic destiny, and not one of its units can escape its unconscious mission. Remember, we all have a mission. Or get rid of the burden of its cooperative work with nature. Cooperative work with nature. Thus will mankind, humankind, race after race, perform its appointed cycle pilgrimage. And finally, from the voice of the silence, hast thou attuned thy heart and mind to the great mind and heart of all mankind? For as the sacred river's roaring voice, whereby all nature sounds are echoed back, so must the heart of him who in the stream would enter thrill in response to every sigh and thought of all that lives. So I'll leave you with those thoughts, and we'll continue next time around.